I
Yes.
just spoke to. Well, we're live.
We are live on YouTube, right?
We're starting in 5.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today. I am Shriyal Setumadhavan, the feature editor of Construction World, and I am delighted to welcome you all for today's webinar on Hardox, the best abrasion-resistant steel in the cement and concrete industry. This webinar is brought to you by SSAB and organized by Construction World. 24 years in the running, Construction World delivers the most authentic, trusted, up-to-date and timely information and is distributed across 800 cities in India and overseas. SSAB is a highly specialized global steel company that develops high-strength steel and provides services for better performance and sustainability. A leading producer in the global market of advanced high-strength steels and quenched and tempered steels, stripped, plate and tube products, as well as construction solutions. SSAB's steel and services help in making end products lighter and increase their strength and lifespan. The company has been at the forefront of sustainability in many ways. It has a plan to offer fossil-free steel to the market in 2026 and to eliminate all of the CO2 emissions by 2045. So, are you a performer-oriented and value-based steel user? If yes, then the Hardox name is all good news for you. Hardox wear plate gives you an extended service life and high productivity in the most challenging environments. It can withstand aggressive environments such as the cement and concrete industry, including the quarrying and mining and transport industries with its incomparable combination of hardness and toughness. To share more insights, I would now like to welcome our two eminent speakers for today's webinar. First, please welcome Dipankar Sarkar, Technical Development Manager, MEI India. Welcome, Mr. Sarkar. Having completed his Bachelor of Engineering and Master of Technology in Metallurgical Engineering and Material Science from IIT Bombay, Mr. Dipankar Sarkar has a work experience of around 7 years in the steel industry. At present, his role involves solving various wear challenges in different applications and providing all the required technical support to the customers. He extends his support to customers from India and the APAC countries with the correct suggestions, value proposition, and upgradation strategy. Also joining him is Mr. Ibrahim Abolkhair, Technical Development Manager, MEI Middle East. Mr. Ibrahim Abulkhair is a technical development manager at SSAB since 4 years with a demonstrated history of working in the wear-resistant steel industry. He looks after the Middle East market in the raw material handling and heavy transport segments. He is a strong engineering professional with a Master of Science degree focused in metallurgical engineering and Bachelor of Science degree focused in mechanical design engineering in Germany. Thank you for joining us today. Before you take over the session with your presentation, I would like to inform our attendees that the presentation will be followed by a Q&A with all of you, with the viewers. So please do key in your questions. At the bottom of your screen, you would see a Q&A box and a chat box. Our request is for you to key in your questions into the Q&A box so that we could have them discussed at the end of the session. With that, over to you, Mr. Sarkar and Mr. Abulkhair, to take this forward.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shriyal, for a nice introduction. So I'll share my screen.
Sure.
Yes. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are seeing my screen right now. So good afternoon. My name is Dipankar Sarkar. I am the Technical Development Manager for SSAB Swedish Steel India Private Limited. I am taking care of India operations, and with me, my colleague from Germany, Mr. Ibrahim Abulkhair is here, and he's looking after the Middle East regions. And today we'll be talking about the various applications of Hardox web plates in the cement and concrete industries and how it benefits to the customers. So topics for today, we have cut it short to introduction of our SSAB company, like SSAB Steels, what is his background in brief, and upgrade benefits to the customer, and how we are benefiting the environment, and also the type of wear which is happening in the cement and concrete applications. And Hardox introductions. So we'll be talking about the Hardox product portfolio and what we are capable of producing the wear plates. So after that, we'll be shortly showing you the overall application area where our Hardox wear plate is currently we are supplying, and how we are upgrading the web plates in various applications. And then we'll be going into direct applications and live case studies and parts, and just stay tuned. So SSAB in brief. So SSAB Swedish steels are present in the market, in the global steel market, since 1878. That is more than 140 years old. And we are having the production capacity of 8.8 million tons annually. And currently we are having 14,000 professionals who are supporting our customers in 50 countries. And despite of having a pandemic year, we have managed to score our annual net sales of 65 billion Swedish krona. And we have mainly three steel divisions, and that is SSAB Special Steels, SSAB Europe, and SSAB Americas. And we have two subsidiaries, that is in Finland, Tibnor and Ruki Construction. So how we are present globally and locally, as you can see in the global world map, we are covering more than 150 countries with our sales support and tech support. We are having 5 production plants in Nordic countries and 2 production plants in USA, that is in Iowa and Alabama. We have 3 production units in Sweden and 2 production unit in Finland. We are also having a tube and section manufacturing unit in Finland. And in India, we are having 4 regional sales manager to look after all the commercial parts and sales support, and 2 technical development manager, including myself. And there are 2 warehouses in Chennai and Mumbai, which is having total capacity of 7,500 tons. So how we are upgrading? The upgradation, in order to upgrade the abrasion resistant steel, so we have a vision in SSAB, that is to make a stronger, lighter, and more sustainable world. And in order to realize that vision, we are providing the high hardness and high strength products to increase the service life, and also increase the strength of the product with having the capacity to reduce the weight reduction. Also it will result in the lowering the production cost. And when you are reducing the weight, it leads to the less fuel consumption, and also the CO2 emission to the environment. So we are not only upgrading, we are not only benefiting the customer, we are also benefiting the environment. So different types of wear which we are currently facing in the challenging environment like cement and concrete industries. So we are having mainly 2 types of wear which we can see in the photographs, that is the sliding wear and the impact wear, and the erosion wear, which is also we can see in the cement and concrete industries. So sliding wear, as you can see, that the abrasive particles are slides down to the wear plates, and it will micro cut the wear plate surfaces, and it will worn out. The wear plate surfaces will worn out. So in impact wear, the abrasive particles are falling at a particular angle and velocity on the liner plates, as you can see, and it will impact, and it will the wear plate will be subjected to impacts because of this abrasive particles. In particle erosion, what happens is there is a erosion, there is a wear wear of the particles, which is having bigger and smaller fraction, falling from a particular angle, falling from a particular velocity, and it will worn out the steel plates and wear plates in the application. So Hardox wordplate product portfolio. So the Hardox is the trademark for from SSAB, and we only can produce the Hardox wordplate, and nobody in the world can produce the Hardox wordplate. And what we have, what we offer to the customer, that Hardox wordplates provides the extreme durability because of the best combination of high hardness and excellent toughness. And we are having the range of 400 bhn to 700 bhn of hardness we are currently supplying to India. And in the thickness range, we can go from 0.7 millimeter to 160 mm. And in the width also, we can produce up to 3.35 meter. And what we are having a upper hand in the through thickness hardness properties, and properties are very much isotropy, that is it's same in all direction of the plate. And we are having the market's best workshop properties. So in terms of cutting, welding, bending, we are having the best workshop properties. And we are also having some guaranteed toughness options in our Hardox wear plates. And we are also making tubes and bars of 400 bhn to 500 bhn material. And we are also generating the awareness regarding our genuine Hardox wear plates. So we have some set of cross check points, which you can always come back to us and check whether the supplied wear plates are genuine or not. So we have the set of questionnaire and set of cross check points to check the genuinity of the Hardox wear plates. So there are many challenging areas we are having, and we are trying to upgrade with our Hardox wear plates. So in tippers and trailers, construction and yellow goods, mining and quarry, mineral processing, waste and recycling industry, metal and plastic industries recycling, and also in the agriculture and forestry industries. We have live case studies. We have done upgradation with our Hardox wear plate. And today we'll be talking more application on the cement and concrete industries. So so in terms of describing the competing material in this aggressive and challenging environments, we are having very hard materials like ceramics, which is having very high hardness, but it doesn't have the impact toughness in its property. So it won't withstand the uh, exact criteria of your application if it's subjected to impact or erosion. Now we are coming into the chromium carbide overlay plates, that is the hard particles overlaid in a soft matrix like mild steels. It's also having its own limitations of the impact toughness properties. So where the applications are subjected to only impact wear, it won't sustain. So it doesn't have that adequate impact toughness property. So it will be only limited to sliding and erosion wear applications. And then we are coming into the rubber. Rubber is a soft material, and it's having its own impact toughness, and it can withstand very heavy blows, but it doesn't have the proper hardness to withstand sliding wear in the application. So it's also having the limitations of the hardness. So in terms of all this combination of this high hardness and high toughness properties, Hardox wear plates succeeds to upgrade in these three applications. And in terms of hardness, in terms of toughness, it's having the best combination to withstand all three applications. So understanding the abrasive materials is very important. We can see the rock example here. So normally what happens is rock or abrasive particles are having uh, the rock particles and the abrasive particles are consist of a number of minerals, and minerals are having their own level of hardness. So why to check the hardness of this abrasive particles is therefore to understand what type of wear it's happening and what type of hardness level should be there in the wear plates for your application, for your particular application. So we are currently trying to understand that and give you the correct solution. So what is required in the cement applications? So understanding the abrasive particles and the level of wear is happening in your applications, you can see that this is the high level of wear where the abrasive particles are very dominant, and abrasive particles hardness are dominant on the Hardox on the wear plates, sorry, not Hardox, in the wear plate surfaces. So it goes with the micro cutting. So it cuts through the surface, and the worn out of the wear plate will be very high. So according to the level of wear, we are giving the solution of what type of suitable hardness level you should have for your applications to minimize this level of wear. And also with the high hardness and with the high strength, how we can allow the customer to increase the load carrying capacity, the payload capacity, how we can do the weight reduction to make the structure light with the increased wear resistance and dent resistance to give the improved service life. So currently we are trying to solve these kind of problems with our Hardox work plates. So configuration of liner plates, we are currently making like we try to understand from the abrasive particles, we try to understand what type of application you are having. Then we try to understand what is the worn down criteria. The worn down criteria is that at what time, at what worn out thickness you are stopping the machine and you are going for the maintenance. Suppose you are using a 20 of liner plates, and the criteria to take the machine into the maintenance stop is 90% of the worn out thickness. So how you are trying to maintain that, how you are going for a maintenance stop. So what we do here is we look at the configuration of the liner plates you are having and the application and the nature of abrasive you are using, and then we then we design the liner plates like that way that the main impact area should have the best toughness property to withstand the abrasive particles falling from a angle and velocity. And the side liners and the end liners, which are only subjected to sliding wear, because there will be no such impact in the side liners, or very minimal impact on the side liners, but there will be this part will be subjected to sliding wear. So it should have the proper hardness. So that's how we are currently configure the liner plates uh, for your particular application. So here we have supplied Hardox 450 or 500 depending on the application where the impact areas are. And as you can see, the end liner and the side liners plates are upgraded to Hardox 550 and Hardox 600 to withstand the sliding wear. And this kind of design support and this kind of material suggestion supports are always given to the customer, and you are very much welcome if you have such pain areas at your applications. So I'll be handing over to my colleague Ibrahim, and he will take you over to the various applications in the cement and concrete industry.
Thank you, Dipankar, and welcome everyone. Thanks for your attention. We will start now going deeper a little bit into the cement and concrete industries when it comes to using the Hardox square plate in general. Usually when I'm presenting in a cement or a concrete presentation or a webinar, I start with putting this schematic and to show mainly one specific type of cement plants or cement lines in which we can describe all the uses or the applications more or less that Hardox square plate can be used in. So we will spend a couple of minutes in this slide. I want to describe more or less some of the points on its own. Some of them are repeated, so let's start. Usually, if you have an integrated cement plant, so you have your own quarry, you have your own raw material, or even not, but you still buy your raw material from a certain quarry or a certain supplier. Starting from the open pit quarry, first of all, they go there, they prepare for the blasting and so on, and then you have the rocks or the material that has to be transported from the point of blasting to the first hoppers to go to the crushing, jaw crusher, and so on, and further on. If we take a look at the points number 2, 3, and 4, we will see 3 applications that are more or less quite famous for the Hardox square plate. For example, the loaders and the tipper. The loader has its front bucket, and the front bucket can be completely produced from Hardox in grades starting from Hardox 450, passing by 500, 500 tough, and 600 and extreme as well. Same for the tipper. More or less, we are working at the moment worldwide, and especially in Middle East and India, on upgrading the market from the conventional tipper, the box shape with a lot of stiffeners, to the U-shape tipper. And that's also produced from Hardox, upgrading from mild steel to Hardox 500 tough. By the way, the 500 tough is the new generation of the Hardox 450, so it's quite a new product from SSAB that started more or less 2 years ago in development, and now we have it branded and it's being sold even in India and Middle East. So that's the new generation of Hardox 450. Then we go further to the excavators and the dump trucks. More or less, it's the same excavators. They have their shovels or their buckets, and they are also produced more or less 80 or 90% completely from Hardox grade, starting from 450 to extreme again. Same for the dump trucks. More or less, you will have all the lining package for the dump truck. Moving forward, okay, now we transported using the loader, the tipper, dump truck to the first hopper, which is relined more or less by Hardox 500 or 550 to be able to take a little bit the impact as well as the superior sliding wear resistance. Then from the hopper, you drop through a conveyor belt in which the conveyor belt is a rubber belt, but still it has some liners on the sides, which is more or less Hardox 600 or extreme. The reason for that is that there is no impact at all. So the high hardness will not be affected by the lower impact toughness. In that case, it's sliding wear, straight sliding wear. Hardox 600 can work quite well in that. Then we go to the first part of the crushing, which is the jaw crusher. The jaw crusher, it's mainly a feeder and a hopper that will get the material, drop it into the crushing. If you have seen it before, it's one stationary jaw and then another jaw that is moving like in a 3-link mechanism, and it will keep crushing. These jaws are more or less from castings because of the complexity of the shape, but the liners, they are called cheek plates. That's a very nice application for Hardox 600. It extends the service life quite well, and we have a lot of good success cases in the region of Middle East and India. Moving forward, again, rubber conveyors. Then we have number 8, which is a very, very important application, crusher screens. And the crusher screens are more or less used to screen the size of the rocks from each crusher to the next step of crushing. More or less, they can be produced from Hardox 450, 500, 500 tough, and 600, depending on the size, the cutting, the thickness, and the shape of it. Is it a complex shape or not? Moving forward to the secondary crushing, which is the cone crusher. For that, again, you have some hoppers, you have some feeders, and in the cone crusher itself, you have an inlet cone on top, which is usually one part. It can be produced from Hardox as one part or as liners, different liners, in order to be easier for maintenance. Also inside the cone crusher, there is some liners that can be done from Hardox 600. Mainly, there is one cylindrical liner. excuse me, that will be produced from Hardox 600. The main reason is that it's also only sliding wear, so there is no impact or problems from rocks falling from a high height. Then we go to the chutes in number 10, and again, relined as my colleague Dipankar showed you in the last slides. It can be relined from Hardox 500, 500 tough, and 600 as well, depending again on the size, the hardness of the rock, and so on. Moving forward to storage bins, elevator buckets, which is point number 13. And the elevator buckets is more or less a very famous application in cement industries and quarries as well. It's usually a chain of buckets that would take material from one point to a higher point, and those buckets can be produced from Hardox 450, and more or less it's a very, very straight application, Hardox 450, where it can stay for a very long time, couple of years, as per our experience with our customers. And for that, you don't have a headache with them. They can be relined with some Hardox 600 in some cases. We will go through that in the next slides. Then we move to the point number 16, in which we have the row mill, and the row mill is a machine or an equipment that usually takes an input of clay, iron, limestone, and fly ash, and they become dried and grinded at the bottom of that to be prepared to be sent to the preheating, which is step number 17, to go to the furnace to a rotary kiln later in step 18. In the rotary kiln, we more or less have around 1500 degrees. So more or less, you don't have any business for Hardox there, since the material will get softened. We will discuss that also later in the presentation. After the rotary kiln, in step 19, we have the clinker cooling bed, in which the temperature drops down to somehow below 500, in which for that we have a specific solution, which is called Hardox High Temp, which is usually just in a brief, quenched and tempered plates like Hardox. When they are heated above a certain temperature, they experience something called softening. And softening means that if you have a Hardox 600 and you raise the temperature of the plate higher than 220 degrees, it will start to back temper and lose its hardness until it reaches maybe 300 Brunels, which means you buy a Hardox 600, but you get a 300 Brunel. So this is why it's not recommended to use the Hardox in higher temperatures than 220 degrees. But in that case, up to 600 degrees, we have developed a product called Hardox High Temp, and the Hardox High Temp can withstand temperature without back tempering up to 600 degrees. Then we move forward to the step number 20, in which we have again conveyor belts, hammer crushers, in which it can be relined with Hardox grades from 500 to 600, or in sometimes even again with Hardox High Temp. In some cases, when the hammer crusher is crushing the rocks or the clinker coming out, it's still a little bit hot. It's around 300 to 350 degrees. In that case, relining with Hardox High Temp will extend the service life of your liners. Moving forward again to point number 25. Okay, we did some elevator bucket screw conveyors after the hammer crusher did the crushing. Now we need again to do some grinding. And for that, we go to the step number 25, in which we have the ball mill, which is a cylindrical tube that rotates all the time. It has some reliners that can be done from Hardox grades 500 to 600 embedded into rubber. And there's some steel balls that will rotate with the ball mill in order to grind the material. Then we move further until the cement is produced and it's delivered to the customers. At the end of this schematic, I would like to say that the cement manufacturing is a very harsh production that involves a lot of wear and tear, and using Hardox is going to be in your favor in order to extend the service life due to, as Dipankar said in the last slides, if you check the chemical composition or the elements that consists the rock you are working with, in cement you have a lot of quartz and illite and the limestone, and depending on what kind of cement you are producing, the level of wear is very high, and Hardox is here in order to improve the service life, decrease your maintenance time. Next slide, please. So we spent a lot of time in more or less in a couple of minutes to discuss what is the cement industry and what can we support with the Hardox wear plate. Now we go a little bit deeper into each application on its own to define what can be used and so on. If we take the loaders and excavator buckets or shovels, we have a lot of parts here. So, for example, in the shell part, which is the internal curved part, which is roll bended more or less, in that case, it can be produced either from 450, 500, and the optimum would be 500 tuff. As I said, the 500 tuff is gathering all the great features of the Hardox 450 with its structural abilities, as well as the 500 abilities against sliding wear. So 500 tuff is more or less the future of the 450 500 plates. Then we go to the wear pads on the sides, in which you have Hardox 500 or 600. The reason we use this is that more or less it's all sliding wear, and for that it's not a problem to use 500 and 600, which will extend the service life very much. Going to the bucket side cutters, which are on the side, usually we also recommend again 450, 500, and 500 tuff. I would personally recommend the 500 tuff, and the reason for that is the side cutters are not only facing impact from breaking the rocks or hitting into the rocks, and also not only wear due to carrying what you will carry, the rocks and so on, but there is one hidden use for that. The side cutters more or less work as a structural component because they hold the shell together. Here they are on the side, so they hold the shell together with the cutting edge. So they have also a structural use. For that, the 500 tuff would be an optimum solution. Moving forward to the cutting edge, which usually is the front part that will cut into the rocks or face more or less some impact, as well as some sliding wear, of course. For that, we have specific grades for high tuff, which is a grade of 350 Brinels, but it has superior toughness for a wear plate. There is no other wear plate in the world that has the toughness of the high tuff. The high tuff is the idea of it is that it can be used in areas where you have very low temperatures, which I think it is available in India as well, in some mountains on top where you have some very low degrees, and in that case the high tuff would be a solution for you. It's more or less again for cold areas where the impact toughness is really required in that. Also for the cutting edge, the 450 and the 500 tuff are a solution, also Hardox 500 as well. Then we have the wear bars and the strips, which are also 550 or 600. The reason for that, again, it's mainly sliding wear, straight sliding wear. There is not a lot of impact, and that gives an advantage for the Hardox 600, as there is no impact at all. Then we have the lip shrouds on the front, can be produced in different shapes and in different ways from Hardox 450, 500, 550, and 600. Since also there is not a lot of impact, they are more or less protected by the teeth. Next slide. One example for one case, since we speak now about the new Hardox 500 tuff, the next generation of the 450 in excavator buckets. We have one standard bucket on the left, in which we have a customer came, they have this type of bucket, they are producing it from mild steel with 450 Brinell wear plate. It has a weight of 21 tons. Its capacity is around 15 cubic meters. The load capacity is 39 tons. And they come to us, we want to upgrade in order to improve the performance and the productivity as well. So we go for the Hardox 500 tuff, which means that since it has higher hardness and higher dent resistance than the Hardox 450 and the mild steel, of course, we decreased the thickness of some parts, which allowed us to decrease the weight by 22%. From 21 tons, it became 16.4 tons. Also decreasing the thicknesses and improving the design a little bit, it supported increasing the capacity or the volume from 15 cubic meter to 18 cubic meter. And the load capacity now increased from 39 tons to 43.6 tons, which means you gain 18% of higher load capacity, you have better productivity. It was produced from Hardox 500 and 500 tuff. So with the benefits, they have 12% higher productivity, weight reduction, lower fuel consumption. As Deepankar said, we are moving into the direction of low carbon dioxide emissions and saving the environment more or less worldwide. Also, the reduced maintenance and repair is very important, since for that you avoid stoppage in work and you avoid the costs of maintenance. Next slide. In the next slide, now we speak about the dump trucks. We finished the loaders and excavator buckets. We move to the dump trucks, in which we have also, like I said, you have the mother plate or the structure itself. Excuse me. And then you usually only change the liner package that you have. As you see in the picture, it's more or less some parts that will be cut, and then you have to assemble over it as a liner plates. Hardox 500 Tough, optimum solution. The reason for that, the tipper bodies, they carry big rocks, but not as big as the dump trucks carry. And since the rocks are bigger and harder, it means that you need higher dent resistance. So 500 Tough has proven it's better resistance to dents, as well as you gain 50 Brinell's difference from 450 to 500 in hardness. So Hardox 500 Tough can be used for the complete floor, the sides and the front, no problem to be done from Hardox 450, since the impact and the sliding wear is somehow less. Next slide, please. One also case from one customer that we have, in that case, they also had their own liner kit. They are using 400 Brinell wear plate, and they had the weight of the whole liners was between 5 to 15 tons. They have service life less than 8,000 hours. And again, they came to SSAB, how can we improve our performance? How can we improve the productivity? Hardox 500 Tough is the answer, with some additions of 500 and 550, depending on what is the use. We increase the productivity by around 12,000 hours. So we have from 8,000 hours to 12,000 hours service life, as well as using thinner material when upgrading to higher grades allowed us to decrease the weight of the liners and the whole truck, of course. For that, if you check the text at the bottom, if you with each truck, if you reduce the consumption from 300 liters per hour to 298 liters per hour, more or less for your whole production, you will reduce by 12,000 liters saved per year. And that's a lot of money, a lot of carbon dioxide emissions, and so on. Benefits, you have higher productivity, you have lower fuel consumption. Again, the maintenance stops are a headache in each quarry, cement, whatever site you have. The maintenance, if you have maintenance stops, you are losing money, no production, and that's what we can support you with. Next slide, please. In this slide, we have another case in which we discuss in the dumpers the dead bed concept. The dead bed concept is that, okay, you have a big dump truck and you have relied on Hardox 500 Tough and 450, but still you need to improve with other solutions, since you have a combination of different rock sizes, hard rocks, and so on. The idea is that what we do is we can add this triangular Hardox parts on top of your liner. It doesn't have to be triangular, it can be circular, it can be stripes or whatever. The main concept of that is usually you have a combination of smaller rocks and much bigger rocks. The gaps between those triangles or strips or circles, they are designed in a smart way. They are not just mounted on it. The gap between each one and the other one allows the tipper or the dumper to hold one of the small rocks in between those wear pads. What does this help you with? That when you have these rocks trapped between the liners or the wear bars, what happens is that the bigger rocks will roll over the smaller rocks and it will not slide over your plate. So you are more or less wearing out the smaller rocks and not wearing out your dumper body liners, and that extends the service life a lot. So that is one of the smart solutions that can be done from Hardox 450, 500 Tough, and these wear bars can be done from 550 or 500 Tough as well, and that increases the service life very, very much. Next slide, please. Then, so we finished the excavator and loaders buckets, the dump trucks. Now we go to the tippers. Just briefly, in tippers, I really like this segment because there is a lot of improvements that can be done when upgrading from the mild steel tippers to the Hardox tippers. The idea is that in the sides, we avoid using the stiffeners, and for that, we just use bends to increase the stiffness so that you don't lose the stiffness of the tipper. The shape allows to carry bigger rocks, and you have a lot of wear savings. In the floor, decreasing the thickness of the floor from mild steel to Hardox has alone around 20% of the weight savings. So the floor thickness reductions help a lot in the weight reduction. Then the service life will increase more or less from mild steel to Hardox 450 or 500 tough by at least 50%. And that case actually is between 450 and 500 tough. So if you take from mild steel to 500 tough, you have at least 2 or 3 times the service life of the tipper. Then we have the top rails, which is more or less the structure that's holding the whole tipper together. The design of these top rails has to be designed smartly in order to be able to avoid stability problems like buckling and so on. So the design has to be done in a very, very nice way. Still, also you decrease some weight in that. And finally, the tailgate, which is more or less the most part where you have damages due to when the driver is driving and the rocks are locked onto the gate, and as well as when tipping, you have your hydraulics and they get a lot of damages. So having Hardox in the gate will extend the service life, as well as it will protect your hydraulics, which is very expensive for each tipper, and without it you cannot move. Next slide, please. Then we get into the cement plant. We have a lot of hoppers and drain chutes, and in that case, they are regularly exposed to high flow, pressure, and impact. And using Hardox to fight the wear and abrasion will extend the service life and improve the performance of your chutes and hoppers. Grades that can be used depending on the impact. You can use Hardox 500 tough. If it's more or less sliding wear, we recommend directly Hardox 600 in order to extend the service life as much as possible. Next slide, please. Conveyor belts and screw conveyors. Usually in the screw conveyors and the conveyor belts, they are rubber, but they are relined with steel plates. And for that, like I said, it's sliding wear, completely straight sliding wear. So more or less, Hardox 600 can be used without any problem, since you don't have any impact problems in that case. Then we have the screw conveyors, and they are usually moving the granular parts and handling the bulk material. They are typically mounted right on top of the hopper, or sometimes if it's a silo, that will be storing and so on. And for that, we recommend using Hardox 500 tough or 500 in the screw blades, on the second picture from the right. So in the screw blades, we recommend 500 or 500 tough. In the trough and tubes, you can also use Hardox 450, 500 or 500 tough, which will extend the service life of your screw conveyor. On the bottom of the slide, there is 2 pictures for clinker conveyor sprockets, and we have a lot of customer cases that proved the great service life increase and the performance increase when it comes to Hardox 500 with thicknesses especially higher than 55 millimeter. We solved a lot of problems with a lot of customers in that. Next slide, please. Then we go to the screens. Sorting screens can be used to pre-sort or classify or size split, as we discussed in the start of the presentation. Only the parts that have reached the required size can pass through, and for that, Hardox has proven a lot of good performance, depending on, like I said, what is the thickness, is there any complex shape, do you need to do roll bending, and so on. One good example is on the top picture to the right. You have Hardox 600 of 12 millimeter. This one was cut by laser cutting, and it performed quite great. If you don't have a laser cutting machine, or there's no facility around you that can do that, plasma cutting machine, high definition underwater, it can perform more or less similar, and debunker can support you locally to define what is the cutting sequence that can be followed in order to avoid softening the small steel parts between the holes, which is the main issue when it comes to screens. Then we have the grizzly bars on the bottom right, and that will can be done. The structural parts can be done from Hardox 450 or Hardox 500 tough, which are holding the grizzlies together. The grizzly bars themselves can be done from Hardox 500. Next slide, please. Then we have the elevator buckets. There are mainly 3 points that I would like to discuss here. The first one is quite easy, the bucket itself, Hardox 450 straight. Service life is quite long. It can be more than 4 years, so you don't have a headache with that. The second point, some parts where when you have damaged elevator buckets, the main problem is the cutting edge. And if you have a problem in the cutting edge, you can use Hardox 600 as a strip in the front to improve the wear performance there. So Hardox 450 for the bucket, Hardox 600 for the cutting edge. And finally, the third point is the casing of the elevator bucket itself. It can be also produced from Hardox 450, and it can extend the service life as well. I think in India, SSAB has had some success cases in that as well. Next slide, please. The most important part in a cement plant, the vertical row mill. In the vertical row mill, again, it grinds the raw material, or how you call it, the raw mix or whatever, during the manufacturing of cement. And it is fed later on to the cement kiln, which transform it then to clinker, which will later be cement. So the raw mill undergoes severe wear on the grinding table and walls, as you can see in the gray liners at the bottom. And mainly in that we have some success cases using Hardox 600. The main reason is that usually it's used in chromium carbide overlay plates, but using Hardox 600 will more or less reach quite close service life to the CCO, a little bit less, but for that you are saving around 30 to 40% in the costs. So for 2 sets of Hardox 600, you may buy 1 set of chromium carbide overlay plates. So you are paying more money for less time. One more application is, of course, the separator, or the 2 pictures to the bottom left, which is Hardox 450 and 500 tough at the moment. And for that, they are just guide vanes to direct the flow of the air or the particles. And it's a quite easy job to be done. It's just some welding and some cutting. We have also the reject cone, which can be produced from Hardox 600, depending on what are the roll bending radiuses. Yeah, and then again, the grinding table can be done from Hardox 600. I don't want to miss anything in this slide because it's quite important. Yeah, we can move to the next slide. Then after that, we have the centrifugal fans, which is usually very important part, because usually all the fins can be produced from Hardox 500 due to the much better sliding wear resistance. Usually, again, it's fighting a lot of contaminations of quartz, which is a problem when it comes to sliding wear. So Hardox 500 can be used in a nice way in this part. Also for the cone on the top and the bottom plate, they can be done from Hardox 500 as well. It's not a problem at all with roll bending. We can support use the processing, as well as the casing that can be done also from Hardox 500 to improve the service life when it comes to the sliding wear coming on that. Next slide, please. We move afterwards to the cyclones. So the cyclones, they are preheating the output of the vertical row mill to be transported to the rotary kiln. At some parts, we have some cyclones that are still not with a very high temperature. So it can be produced from Hardox 450 and 500 tough, as shown in the below pictures. Later on in the cyclones, it becomes around 900 degrees, which is quite hot for Hardox. And in that, we have there are some other solutions. Wear liners in the cyclone walls made from Hardox are extremely strong, and still not only strong, they can reduce the weight, and that helps a lot in the maintenance stops to change the liners. Next slide, please. Then we move to the rotary kiln, in the rotary kiln especially, we don't have a lot of applications, since, as I said, the temperature is between 1000 to 1500 degrees. The only thing we can speak about is that after the heating, there is some cooling beds in which there are some guide vanes that are dividing some flow. The temperature at that point is around up to 500 degrees, and for that we have the Hardox high temp. It's usually between 50 to 30 millimeter water jet cut, and we have a lot of success cases for that especially. Next slide, please. In the hammer crushers, this is a very important part. Again, in some liners, if the temperature is still very high, we can use Hardox high temp. In other cases, the hammer itself can be produced from Hardox 500, 550, or 600. The main thing is that sometimes the hammers are quite thick, up to 120 millimeter. Sometimes Hardox availability in the local market cannot be there. We have a very nice solution that has proven a lot of success cases worldwide, is that using thinner hammers, and larger numbers. So if you have 10 hammers, each one is 120, you use 20 hammers, each one is 60 millimeter in thickness. Or you can use sandwich hammers or twin hammers with welded with electrical pockets, for example. And using 500 and 600 has proven a lot of success in this application, especially worldwide. Below that, we have the grizzly bars that we discussed in the screens. Yeah, and we discussed the high temporary interliners. Next slide, please. Then in the final parts of a cement industry, we have the silos, which are used more or less for homogenizing, and they more or less define the size of a cement plant. In some cases, they are also relined, especially the internal cones. They are relined or produced from Hardox 450, 500, or 500 tough. Then finally, we have the last grinding step, which is the ball mill. The ball mill is relined with more or less castings, but the castings cause a lot of problems. The weight is very high, which requires a lot of power, which is a lot of money, as well as the noise of that is very high and it's not allowed in many places. The solution for that is that we use Hardox 500, 600 embedded into rubber to decrease the weight and to improve the impact toughness using the rubber's ability for that, and it performs much better than the castings. One more application in that, as you can see in the middle part, there is two green diaphragms. One is the intermediate and one is the discharge. So we have two sections in the room. One is for grinding to a certain size. The second one is for grinding the second size. Those diaphragms have proven a lot of success in many cases from Hardox 600 especially. Since it's more or less, there is no impact on them. They are quite on a different direction than where the impact is happening. They only pass the grinded material to the next section. For that, it's only sliding, and Hardox 600 has proven a lot of success in that. So you have at least 15% more service life than castings in the diaphragm, 15%. And that's quite huge for the ball mills. Then we have the concrete. We go to the concrete. Usually we have concrete mixers, concrete pump trucks, and stationary concrete mixers. We can move to the next slide directly. We are running out of time. In this case, I've chosen one example. If you take look at the left side picture, you see the drum itself in the red color, which is produced from Hardox, and the chassis in the blue color, which is produced from Strengths material, Strength 700. And then we have inside, we have the drum shell, and we have the fins in the middle. Most of the wear is usually on the fins. The drum is having wear, of course, but the fins are the highest affected part. We have one example to show you on the bottom right part. We have one drum from mild steel, and we have one drum from Hardox 450. The fins are from mild steel on the left side. The fins are from Hardox 450 on the left side. The drum on the left side is 6 millimeter. The fins are 8 millimeter. We reduced the drum to become 3 millimeter in the right side, and the fins to 5 millimeter. By that, we reduce the weight by 1 ton, which means you have much less fuel consumption, and the cost of production decreased by 6%. So you upgrade to Hardox, you think, Hardox is more expensive than mild steel. But at the end of the day, your complete manufacturing cost, which means material price, welding, cutting, bending, it has decreased by 6%. So that's one of the benefits you get when upgrading. Next slide, please. For the stationary concrete mixers, more or less the liners for different types of mixers, such as planetary, vertical, and mobile mixers, it can be relined by Hardox 600 right away. In some cases, if there is some complex shape, it can be from 500, but usually if there's only a little bit of roll bending or if it's flat, Hardox 600 all the way. And on the right side, you can see Hardox 600 in paddles. They are more or less 25 millimeter thick, and they are competing the Nyhard materials. Nyhard materials are very, very expensive, more or less the most expensive material when it comes to wear resistance worldwide. And comparing the service life of the Hardox 600 with the Nyhard, we have 50% increase in service life in the paddles, 50% increase. And you have more or less 80% decrease in cost. So Hardox 600 in that application is also great and performing quite well. Next slide, please. Then finally, we have the concrete molds in concrete. In that case, we have different type of concrete moldings. We have paver mold and building bricks. We have several other types. Hardox wear plate can increase the service life compared to mild steel by at least 3 times. And we usually discuss a lot with the TDM or Mr. Dipankar in this case, what type do we have? In some cases, we have some molding equipment that usually they pour the concrete. After it solidifies, there is some vibration, and then they remove the equipment. Having Hardox is a little bit tricky because of the vibration and the toughness. For that case, we have two types. The first type is when you have high frequency vibration, but very short time, like 5 seconds. In that case, Hardox 600 can work quite well, quite fine. The fatigue life will not be reached, and you will not have cracks or any problems like that. In some other cases, we have longer times for vibration, but very low frequency. For that, which can get to 2 minutes of vibration. For that case, we recommend Hardox 450 or 500 tough, since the impact toughness will also not be reached. For the Hardox 600, you can reach up to 1 million concrete blocks. And for the other solution, for the 450 and the 500 tough, it's more or less also the same. Next slide, please. Keep in mind the conclusion. Understand the material processed and what kind of wear it imposes to the different applications, which means you have to study what is the rock you are working with, what is the hardness of that rock, what's the shape, the sharpness, and so on. Be aware of the areas where the temperature is over 250 degrees. We discussed that. Service life increase means you have less maintenance, which means less maintenance costs and less downtime. Weight savings, more payload, you can be more productive, and less fuel consumption, less costs as well as less environment damaging. You have to think about the availability. When you are using CCO plates or castings, it's not available all the time, and the price is quite fluctuating. In Hardox, it's much easier. You can get supported by a wear part center or a steel service center, and the material is always available in the stocks. We can support you, of course, technically in all cases, especially in the processing of Hardox and other SSAB products in the workshop. Next slide. My final slide is some discussion about some SSAB mobile applications. You can download all these applications on your mobile phone. Either it's from Google Play or Google Store, or from the App Store on the iPhone. We have Hardox Wear Calc, which can give you comparisons and relations to what happens when you upgrade from mild steel to Hardox, or from Hardox 450 to 600. It's a nice application, and we can support you with that. Then we have the Weld Calc, which helps you to get the parameters of welding SSAB products, strengths, and Hardox. So you can download that and check. I'm welding Hardox 600 5mm with Hardox 450 10mm. What consumables, what parameters can I use? The application will output that. Then we have the SSAB Bend Calc, which also same as Weld Calc. It will help you to get the bending parameters. You can say I'm bending Hardox 450, thickness 10mm, length is 1 meter. What is the bending parameters, the punch radius, the die width, the tons required, and so on, and it will output that for you. Finally, we have the Smart Steel, which is an application that can help you track your plates to avoid fake Hardox. So for that, you can give the number of the plate you have, and it will give you the MTC, the Material Test Certificate, and it will help you track and trace your plates and get some commercial offers and so on. It has a lot of features. All of these applications are for free and downloadable from, as I said, either Google Play or App Store. Next slide. Thank you, and now we move to the questions.
Thank you, Ibrahim. So we'll have a short session for Q&A. I'll just stop sharing my screen and I'll move to the Q&A session. We have a lot of Q&A. Okay. Okay. Regarding any commercial matter, you can always come back to me. I'll share this commercial questionnaire, like cost differences and all, with our regional sales manager. And for Hardox, fixing holes can be drilled easily. Yes, with the correct parameters, you can easily the Hardox wear plates can be drilled. We have the machining recommendation guidebook for your perusal.
If I can put one more point here, Dipankar, I'm sorry. For drilling Hardox, it's quite easy. There are some recommendations. Very important, do not preheat. Do not preheat before drilling. Try to use, when it comes to lower grades, up to 500, you can use a radial drilling machine with very good fixations, no wood fixations. proper cooling liquid. Above the 500 Brinell Hardox, it's better to use either a milling machine or a CNC drilling machine. Do not use a radial drilling machine. Again, fixations cannot be done with wood, and you have to use the proper cooling liquid. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you for the insight. And we have various questions regarding the manufacturing and fabrication processes for SSB plate, like cutting, building, welding, drilling. So as we are discussing that, we have all kind of recommendation with us. Let me discuss with you. You can come back to me, and we can discuss what type of thickness and what type of Hardox web plates you are using. So according to that, we can suggest you. And regarding, okay, so another hard drives. Okay, so there are a lot of waves of questions actually we received, and yes, a development on elevator bucket design. We are having many designs with us, and we are having very good case studies with us regarding the elevator bucket. As Ibrahim also showed that we have bucket designs, we have the casing designs, and live cases for support you. And just come back to us with the inputs, and we will give you the proper solution as per your applications. So we have our 4 regional sales manager for the sales services, and the 2 technical development managers for the technical supports, and there are, so yeah, so we have one question, Ibrahim, that what are the benefits of using Hardox compared to other wear-resistant plates? I can see this is one of the repeated questions here. So
yes, if we will compare Hardox or SSAB products with any competitor, I would reply quite easy. There is two points here to discuss. Number one, how does the production happen? Of course, we study our competitors and we know how each one is producing. SSAB has developed its own quenching and tempering machines. We pay a lot of money and we invest a lot of money in our quenching machines. In metallurgical, if anyone here is a metallurgical engineer, the more you add alloys to your steel, the less it is going to perform when it's getting welded, bended, cut, or whatever. In SSAB, we put very low amount of alloys, but we pay a lot of money for the quenching and tempering. Many other competitors, they don't have the same quenching and tempering machines that we have in Sweden. So they, in order to compensate for that, they put a lot of alloys. How can you see that? You can see it in the carbon equivalent in the data sheet, for example. Not only that, you can see it by trying. Of course, you did not only try Hardox, you may have tried other competitors, and you can see the processing problems. Regardless of that, also the dimension and tolerances, the quality of the plates you receive is much better. But that's the first part of the question that I can answer you. The second thing is that let's discuss the portfolio. How many grades does they have? Okay, they produce 450, they produce 500. SSAB produced them as well. But this is for us old school. Now SSAB is going for Hardox 500 tough, upgrading 500 tough and 600. You will not find all competitors having these materials. For us, 450, 500 is old school for everyone. We upgrade. No one has the 500 tough. No one has the Hardox high ace. No one has the Hardox high temp. No one has the Hardox 600. You can go check. So SSAB is taking the market to a different level where there is no competition at all because no one reached that level. And of course, you are welcome to discuss with our local TDMs and our local RSMs for more information about that. And you can get personalized educations from us and trainings for your teams and offers to try the material and so on. It's a complete package in SSAB. That's the difference. Upgrading.
yeah, thank you so much for that. And we are actually running out of time, and we have waves of questions still. Many people have expressed interest on the applications, the mobile applications, how they can use it and how they can download and utilize their parameters. So people who are very much interested in that, just come back to me. I'll guide you regarding that, and you can easily download it from the Google Play stores. And okay, And we have one questions. So we have to close it. So we will have one more questions. Uh, in the transit mixer, the truck mixer drum, if no number of wheel joints is assume 5 numbers due to width constraint of Hardox as regular E350 material, can we have 3 wheel joints? So how we should do that?
That should actually not be a problem, but it depends on what is the width. We have two types of products in SCV. We have the plate product and we have the sheet product. Having a width restriction can be in the strip product because we have only up to 1.6 or 1.5 meter wide, but in plate product down to 3 millimeter, we have up to 3.3 as far as I remember in width. So for that, it should not be a problem. But if you are using strip material, we have many offers. First of all, you can do a nice well joint and have the 3 joints. It should not be a problem. In case you are not quite confident with that, you can use one of our services in laser welded sheets so that you can increase the width up to 3 meters. So having 1.5 laser welded together, you can receive that from SSAB after asking the RSMs how to get that, and then you can the laser weld will be much higher quality, and then you reduce the amount of weld passes you might require.
Yeah, exactly. And someone asked that why silo will require Hardox web plate in
in
general.
some silos there is some like it's not a great cone, but it's like an inlet cone inside of it, so that the material goes to the inlet cone and then the flow can be controlled. Those inside cones can be produced from Hardox 500 since there is a lot of wear from the cement to more or less pass this through the inlet cone, and in that case it can be reliant with Hardox 450 or 500.
Okay. And most of the people are saying that okay, how it differs with 400 BHN materials, that Hardox web plate, how it how we can differentiate it, in terms of properties, in terms of hardness, how we differentiate our Hardox grades from 400 BHN materials.
From other materials or inside the Hardox portfolio, or
No, from
I didn't get
other
that.
materials. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be through trials, because, for example, I'll give you a quick example. I know we are running out of time, but let's take a Hardox 500 plate, which is 75 millimeter thick. To compare that with other competitors or with other materials, they only have at the top of the 75 millimeter, they have the 500 Brinell hardness. And as you go deeper inside the plate, it starts to become 300. So all of a sudden, your wear rate will increase very much because the hardness is being less. But in Hardox 500, we guarantee you that through thickness, the hardness is 500. But how do you test that? Either you perform tests in a lab, local lab, or you request the MTC, and from the MTC you can see the hardness of the plate. Or other way is that buy the Hardox and try it. So that's the way.
Exactly, and this is the true thickness hardness profile, and this is the this is because of the manufacturing process we are maintaining, we are controlling over the years. As you can see, we are here in like for more than 140 years old, so we are controlling that. So just come back to us and we can discuss more. Yeah, Shriel, you are
Yes,
here.
so
Yeah,
we need to
yeah,
bring this to an end now. We've already surpassed our time, and I would like to thank all our viewers. They've been extremely active to like send in so many questions, and it just
exactly.
shows how helpful the entire session has been for them and the presentation as well. We've had a lot of questions, and we've just been restricted by time, but we will respond to these questions via email. So do not be disappointed if your question has not been, picked up at this point in time. But yes, thank you, Mr. Sarkar, and thank you, Mr. Abolkher, for all the
Thank you.
insights, shared in today's session. This session has been extremely informative, right from the role of Hardox web plate in an aggressive industry such as cement and concrete to the upgradation and checks, ultimate benefits to the customer, plus responding to as many questions that have come from our as possible. You've covered it all. So I'm sure this webinar has been informative and helpful to our attendees as well. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Take care, stay safe, and have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for attending the seminar. and you can come back to me. My email ID will be shared.
Yes.
So we are happy